Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. Welcome back to Real Crypto. Overnight last night we saw Bitcoin get pretty bullish. We put in a big pop in above this ascending triangle pattern, and so the ball is really back in the bull's court. Last time I talked about this, we had a couple of points in the bull's court, and now I think the ball is back into the bull's court. We'll see what happens when we get up here towards the 16.5 level. This is going to be a hard level of resistance for Bitcoin. It's going to go past it or fail it, and that's kind of how price action works, right? But what we have here, the 16.5 level, is kind of a hard line in the sand for Bitcoin. So when we hit this ceiling, we need to watch the price action. We need to see if it goes over it, and it may. If you actually take this measured move here, breaking out of this level, it actually goes right to that level. Okay, so if we break out of this little high and then we pop up, we head right to that level. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if we double top here and round lower, or we'll see if we go through it, maybe flag out something similar to this up here and then surge higher. Overnight, you've seen a little bit of confirmation of alt weakness and Bitcoin bullishness. And if you're new to the markets, that's how it happens. When Bitcoin gets really happy, really bullish, the alts start to get weaker. And that's basically due to the fact that, number one, people like to be in Bitcoin. It's a safe haven. Everyone thinks Bitcoin's going to 500,000. Thank you, John McAfee. But even if you don't think 500,000, maybe you think 50, 100, 200,000. That's still multiples above the 16,000 where we are right now. And, you know, I don't know anyone that necessarily thinks Litecoin's going to 2,000. I don't hear that a lot in the news. So I think people are willing to sell their alts at a moment's notice and jump back into Bitcoins. And I think there's large algorithms programmed to do just that. And that could be a viable strategy. That could be a viable strategy. But I think we're going to get a pause as we get towards the 16.5 level, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. But the ball's in the Bulls' court. What they do with it is up to them. If we get up here and fail, that's because the Bulls failed to follow through. But the ball's back in the Bulls' court. You could make an argument it was back there, back here, but this pump was due to basically some much ado about nothing news about Peter Thiel, who has had a fund in Bitcoin since January of last year. So anyway, that news pump really kind of brought people back into Bitcoin, and now we have a secondary pump just on some continuation. But the important part, no matter what the catalyst, is that we're above this trend line. That is something that you can hang your hat on right there. So let's take a look at some of the alts here. We have Ethereum going past 1,000, albeit briefly with a little bit of a topping candle there, but that's to be expected. People like round numbers and taking profits up there, but we're not breaking down. The Bitcoin rally didn't really fight Ethereum that much. The last time on that Bitcoin rally was right here, where Ethereum popped out of its kind of a lower level consolidation here. Kind of a little base that it was putting in. Right there, started to get some volume here. This was right before that article about Peter Thiel came out. Then that happened, and boom, it slammed Ethereum down pretty hard for what was I don't think a very huge move in Bitcoin, but it slammed the whole market pretty hard. You're going to see this in chart after chart. But since then, we've rallied pretty hard, and this last pop in Bitcoin really didn't kill Ethereum that much. So I think that's a little interesting, even though looking at the charts, the move was pretty almost the same. It wasn't quite as powerful, but you can see Ethereum really didn't drop down that much. Okay, especially comparative to this bar. Look at that big volume. Just bam, we got slammed down. Maybe the no continuation kind of is what made it a little less important in their eyes. But anyway, so Ethereum's still holding out towards highs, 975. I'm not giving up on this one yet. And then we have the big three that have been running kind of in tandem: Ripple, ADA, and XLM, Lumens. So let's go through these charts. Ripple, after setting all-time highs, set some more all-time highs. And then we have kind of a rise in volume right here. There was actually some distribution, and the way you can tell that is because of just the way the chart looks. We just kind of dropped precipitously here, and then we had a nice bounce up, didn't really even go towards the all-time highs, and then kind of put in a big topping bar, and now we're kind of living down this area. Now Ripple's put in this very large base from this huge wick that we came all the way back up to and surpassed, but the volume really wasn't there through the new highs. We have the volume here towards the downside. The volume is here towards the downside, and that's really not bullish action. But if you look out at Ripple, it's kind of in line. Ripple's pops here have been, high volume up here, and then they've kind of been drifting lower as the highs get lower and lower. So Ripple looking a little weak, not broken down yet. However, we still have a very nice trend line in place that it hasn't broken. It's getting close to it, getting close to this trend line. And if you remember the Bitcoin rally up to 20,000 and back down, you could use these trend lines to place hard sell signals on, because these imply that your trend is over. Although this is a longer term signal, Ripple has definitely broken this trend line right there. And if you notice, it kind of coincides with another trend line that I've drawn on a shorter term time frame on Ripple. Right there, kind of coincides right there. There's a little mini head and shoulders, and that's right actually where I exited my Ripple position, right there on that trend line. So you can use these to enter and to exit positions. They're handy for both. I mean, if you want to get technical, you could take this as an entry on Ripple and catch a nice bounce up there. And anyway, that's a little bit of a trading technique. But so far, Ripple is pointing downward, not looking very healthy at these levels right now. Here's your dead cat bounce. So we have a rollover, we have a bounce up, dead cat bounce. We're going to roll down here, test the lows, test this trend line, and then we'll see if we go lower from there. All right, let's zoom back out to the 2-hour chart. Go check ADA, or ADA, as it's technically called, ADA. On my chart, you got XRP down 6%, ADA down 15%, and ADA doesn't like to consolidate. It just likes to go sideways. This has been a coin that has been, the consolidations have been extraordinarily horizontal. You don't see that very often, only in the strongest of coins, and we're seeing that here in ADA. But now we're getting a change in behavior. After some sideways consolidations, we're starting to see basically a fall off in ADA. And so when you see the change in behavior, it's a different beast. Doesn't mean we can't bounce up into this. Now let's say Bitcoin stops rallying, goes sideways for a little bit. Maybe we'll find a bottom in ADA and then bounce up. The 7,500 level looks pretty decent for a bounce. We have some choppiness around here. This is kind of a bit of a test, a testing area. Not to mention that's where this big huge candle has formed with some very large volume. There's your topping candle in ADA right there. And we're failing that. We're failing that. So I don't think you put new money to work in ADA. I think it's had a spectacular run, and I think you let it go. I think it's done for now. And I mean, come on, with a market cap of like $27 billion, this got up to, I think it reached over 30 for a brief moment in time. It's tired, guys. It's tired. You got to let it rest, and you have to let it play out. Let the sellers sell, take some profits, and we'll see where we're at when we're washed up. We'll see where we're at, but. So far, Ripple and ADA both selling off. If you look at Lumens, much of the same, down 10%. So Lumens, after a huge run up, didn't have one big candle. It had about 4 or 5 huge candles. And into, actually, if you take a look at Ethereum here with Lumen, it looks exactly the same. And I'll do that here in a little bit. But Lumen, kind of the same like ADA, falling down out of all-time highs. The volume isn't very extravagant, though. I would personally think that volume would be higher on the sell-off, but it's not. So I don't have a great explanation for that. They're holding the coins that they bought. They like the platform, I guess. So that's good for longer term. But it's falling right now. I wouldn't try to catch a bottom in this. If you did want to pull some kind of a fib off this, I mean, there's some bottom catchers. I would actually pull it from this level, its last true base. And so we're right now just crossing the 38 onwards to the 61. Maybe that's a level we bounce off of, maybe down here to the 76. A lot of coins bounce off the 61 level. That's down to 54 cents in lumens. So just something funny and interesting that I noticed when I was looking at this lumens chart. I'm like, this looks a lot like Ethereum. This looks a lot like Ethereum, up 5,000% and early in 2017. So let's go to the daily chart on Lumen. Okay, so here's a daily chart on Lumen. Let's go to Ethereum. All right, now I'm not going to be able to plot this really well. Actually, let me do this for you guys. Kind of doing this on the fly here. Not super set up, but if you're still with me, hopefully you're going to bear with me for maybe another 30 seconds here. So let's do this. Let's take Lumens. And in another window, I'm going to paste that into Paint here. And I'm going to go to Ethereum on the daily. And I'm going to watch my chart not move, but when it does move, I'm going to screenshot this just for a comparison. This is just something interesting. And like I've said before in a couple of videos, charts kind of rhyme sometimes. They don't always, they're not perfect, but they do rhyme. And if you want to look at look at what the future has hold for some coins, here's Lumen and here's Ethereum back earlier in 2017. And they have the charts look very similar, just a massive rise in Lumens right here off of this low and off of this base and out of this base. So, yeah, there you go, Lumens and Ethereum. So the move may be over. We have, very vertical natures in these coins. So just kind of wanted to show that to you real quick. Anyway, guys, the big story though is Bitcoin is back in the bull market camp. It's up to the bulls what happens from here. If we get follow through, watch out for some pain in the alts. If we start to sell off, I would watch the alts for coins that are setting up. I don't know if these three leaders, Ripple, ADA, and Lumens, are going to run, but you're going to have a new batch of leaders here. You're seeing a little bit of new leadership. You're seeing Qtum up 13%. Going off my last videos talking about the platform coins, you're seeing Lisk up almost 18%, almost 20%. Had a big pump overnight, it looks like, and it's come back down a little bit. Hopefully this can sustain some kind of upper level, hold over this trend line. That would be really nice. So maybe the new batch of leaders kind of goes up a little bit, and maybe these old batch of leaders still base out and go sideways, but that's trading, guys. You got to roll with the punches. But Bitcoin, back in your balls in your court, bulls. What are you going to do with it? Have a good day, guys.